What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today I am still a little bit croaky. But there is news that has come around in the past few days, or at least while I was at the World Championships for Pokemon doing the old commentary thing, and it's pretty big news. You see, Japan updated their ban list. Now, this alone isn't that big news. We had a ban list update the other day, and we saw that Jet Sylphimon was restricted to one card in your deck because of the whole yellow hybrid thing going a little bit silly. Jet Sylphimon, remember, I mean, when we're looking at this stuff, you know, the whole yellow hybrid, which has been a very, very good deck. I commentated that regional from UK Games Expo, and it proved to be a very, very, very good deck. Probably the best deck, well, at least one of the best decks in that tournament. And although there are many good things about that particular deck, I think it's fair to say that Jet Sylphimon is probably the most oppressive of them. I mean, firstly, it's a whole hybrid card, but when you Digivolve from a card with hybrid in its traits, in the Digivolution cards, i.e. if you go from a hybrid into this, you recover 1. Oh yeah, and also, when a Digimon with a Tamer in its evolution sources evolves into Jet Sylphimon, you reduce the cost by 1, which basically means you end up going from a level 4 into Jet Sylphimon, you pay a single memory, and not only do you get the evolution, and a 1 cost to evolve level 5 is pretty good in anyway, you also get the recovery plus 1, which is kinda big. And we also saw that Tommy Himi was restricted to 1 copy in your deck. Same kind of thing, except now, instead of going after yellow hybrid, we're going after blue hybrid. But Tommy Himi was still, you know, when looking at blue hybrid, that was, I think, the closest we can get to saying it is the problem. Because, firstly, when you play, you get to trash 3 Digivolution cards on the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon, but you've got an inheritable skill here, which obviously kicks in when you evolve it into a hybrid Digimon. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, one of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards can neither attack or block. And obviously, if you have multiple Digimon that have Digivolved from Tommy Himi, then you can potentially get multiple Digimon being able to neither attack nor block, which is obviously a big deal. So they were restricted, they made sense, we talked about them before, we get it. What is really interesting to me is that we also went and restricted over in Japan Doru Greymon, which is also from BT7, so they're all actually, all the ones that have been restricted from the same set. And you could kind of understand where this one's coming in, because we've got one of these X-Antibody cards, there are many of them around, and when Digivolving you can place a black card with X-Antibody in its traits from your hand to the bottom of one of this Digimon's Digivolution cards to prevent effects from deleting it or reducing its DP until the end of your opponent's next turn. And we've seen various ways to put evolution cards under your X-Antibody Digimon. That's not particularly big. What's big is that it gives Digimon with X-Antibody in their traits security attack plus 1. And this is what's big. And there is an explanation on the Japanese website now. It is Google translated, but let me share it with you. Because it is a Digimon with the X-Antibody feature, it can easily be used as a Digimon evolution source by the effects of other cards. Like I say, those things that let you put extra evolution sources under. Security attack plus 1 was able to be stacked. In addition, it has a strong defensive effect that does not disappear until the end of the next turn due to its evolution effect, and is immune to negative DP effects. So the official explanation does actually name both of the skills here. The defensive effect is good, but essentially, you know, we've seen in Red, for instance, we have got that Greymon that allows you to, you know, from way back in Starter Deck 1, that gives you security attack plus 1. And actually, while we're here, we've also got the Voltramon from BT4, which is a red level 5 that gives you security attack plus 1. The difference here is that these aren't able to be stacked under quite so easily. That's the real difference in X-Antibody. You've got all of these cards, like Dora Greymon itself, that will put cards underneath. So we have a Tamer example here, Yuji Musha. When one of your black Digimon with X-Antibody in its traits attacks, you may suspend this Tamer to place a card with X-Antibody in its traits from your hand under that Digimon as its bottom Digivolution card. And of course you can put Doragreymon under there to get security attack +1. Or we've got the Aoyamon from BT8. When Digivolving, you can place a card with X-Antibody in its traits from your hand under this Digimon as its bottom Digivolution card to delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 7 or less. So that's the thing with X-Antibody. The thing with X-Antibody is we've got these other ways to put these cards under, and I've given you a couple of examples, and basically that means that it's easier to stack extra cards under with X-Antibody than it would be to stack under, say, the red equivalents. And that's why stuff like Voltramon and Greymon aren't getting restricted, but why this one ends up actually getting restricted. And this is a very, very big deal. So this is a point where I head on over to digimoncard.dev, which is, if you're trying to search for Digimon stuff, if you're trying to search for a particular type of card, I quite literally cannot recommend digimoncard.dev enough. It's phenomenal. It's a great site. There are X-Antibody cards that we don't have. So there are a bunch of them in BT9, including Alphamon Aoyaken, lovely secret rare. But BT9 is out. It's not been out that long in some places. It got delayed, but it's out. The thing is, there are other X-Antibody cards. So in BT10, we've got things like Jesmon X-Antibody and Gankumon X-Antibody. We've got Dark Knightmon X-Antibody, as an example. We've got a new Omnimon X-Antibody, as an example. And what that means is, there are more X-Antibody cards to come. So if you're wondering why it's been restricted in Japan, but it's not yet been restricted over here, this is at least a decent part of the explanation. I can't tell you it is the whole explanation, because the deal here is really simple. I don't work for Bandai. I'm not an employee of Bandai, I'm not in their meetings, so I can't tell you one way or the other for absolute certain what they're thinking. But I can tell you that a card like Doragreymon disproportionately helps, wait for it, X-Antibody cards. That's kind of the point. It is an X-Antibody buffing card. So when we're looking at which cards are going to be, helped out here, then clearly, and actually I should mention there's Jesmon GX as well, which is still an X-Antibody card that goes nicely with Jesmon X-Antibody. This seems like a pretty good explanation. They've banned it over, or at least restricted, I should say, over in Japan, but there's no need to restrict it over here yet, because we don't have BT10, and as it happens at the moment, and obviously all this is to change, yeah? But as it stands at the moment, if you go over onto the official English language website, the American website, call it what you will, BT10 has not been officially announced. So it wouldn't make sense for Digimon to announce the restricted list will be updated as of the release of BT10, or probably as it's been in the past, the pre-release of BT10, because they've not officially announced BT10. Essentially, you cannot restrict a card as of the release of a set you haven't announced yet. That doesn't make a whole bunch of sense, and that gets very, very confusing for customers. Will this be restricted over here? Yes. I feel extremely confident it will be restricted over here. And the reason's super simple. Up till now, we've had the same restricted list. It really is as simple as that. So, I don't understand why they would do it any differently. Ice Wall is restricted in here, over here, and it's restricted over in Japan. The level 5 Argamon is restricted over here, and it's restricted over in Japan. I could keep going, you get the point. The point is, yes, it has been restricted in Japan, and as I've explained, I do think there's a very good reason why it's been restricted. I hope I've explained that well enough. There is a really good reason. You can look at that card and go, okay, fine, I get it, that's why it's restricted. The thing that doesn't really make sense is why it's restricted in Japan, but not over here. But essentially, it will be restricted as of the release of BT10. BT10 is out in Japan, that's why it's restricted now. Because BT10 hasn't been officially revealed, it would, from a marketing standpoint, be super awkward to announce a card is going to be restricted as of the release of a set that hasn't been released yet. So that's why we're there. As one last little side note here, do look at the announcement. You'll notice we've got the regular art, the Tamer Pack art, and the Tamer Pack Winners art, same art, different background. We know this by now, but just to confirm 100%, when a card is restricted or banned in the Digimon TCG, every copy of it, every artwork, every different version, they are all banned or restricted at the same time. So this, ladies and gentlemen, should explain it rather well. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's the news. It's kind of big news, but let's be perfectly clear. It would be an absolute shock. It would be a stunner at this point if this ended up not being restricted over here. I'm not saying it will 100% be restricted over here. Again, I'm not in Digimon's meetings, but I would say there is about a 99% chance it does follow suit over here. So now you know what's restricted, you know why it's restricted, and you know when it's almost certainly going to be restricted over here. My job is done, and now it's over to you guys. Do you believe that this should be restricted? Do you believe it will be restricted? Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk Digimon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.